I am very pleased to have this presentation today. I'd like to introduce first Mr. John Cruz. He was a master carpenter for Hōkūleʻa since 1973 to the present. He's first of 3 original test pilots to the spaceship of our ancestors, Hōkūleʻa. He was a crew member on the first leg of the first voyage to Tahiti in 1976. He's a lecturer, designer, builder of the largest voyaging canoe in Hawaii. And he is from Namahoe from Kauai. He's an advisor and consultant to many voyaging schools in the Polynesian Triangle. I also want to recognize 2 individuals in our audience today. Billy Richards. He was also part of the first voyage in 1976. And Dennis Chun. Who was a member of the 1980 crew. And then last but not least, James Kimo Hugho.
Thank you.
He was Hōkūleʻa's first chief bosun, responsible for training and selecting the finest watermen and waterwomen to crew Hōkūleʻa on her maiden voyage in 1976. I've known him all my life. He is my mother's older brother, exactly to the day. And just honored to have him here again to share his mana'o as well as Mr. Cruz's mana'o on Hōkūleʻa in celebration of Hōkūleʻa's 50th anniversary. So without further ado.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Last month, you've probably seen John Cruz on all of the different television stations talking about his experience with Hōkūleʻa. And so I'd like to ask John to tell you how he got involved.
All those years ago, I finished the service. I was going back to go to night school. And so I was down at Honolulu Hopeko, down in Ala Moana Shopping Center. So I met Kimo and Herb Kani were in there, and I was buying supplies for my class. And they told me, you should come to Herb Kani's house in Kuleo'o, and he's got a project. And this project was to build a vessel as part of the state representative of the 200 year of United States of America. And so that said, I got, I forgot about the school. and I got pretty much involved, and then I got to work with an old shop teacher, Wright Bowman. And Uncle Wright, was steering us in the right direction of building these cross pieces, the iakos, for the Hōkūleʻa, the original iakos, the cross pieces. It's even though it's 50 years, it's a long journey. But hey, 50 years, nothing.
Okay. Well, I got started. I was working for Herb Kani, and I was in his office at his studio, and he was finishing the design of this beautiful voyaging canoe, and it didn't have a name yet. And he says, all cultures look to their objects for survival. And it really got me, because where we were as far as Hawaii was concerned and all of our culture, we were sort of on a downward spiral. Then he also said that this is the spaceship of our ancestors, and that we will have to be the test pilots for this canoe. And it came to me, and I thought, wow, this sort of is in my backyard, is because I was with the Honolulu Fire Department Rescue Squad, and we were training with our rescue equipment, and in this particular case, management was pushing us to create a type of process where we would have a rescue person rappel from this helicopter. And when we started, it didn't look good. It looked very dangerous. This type of helicopters, the Bell 47G, was used in the Korean War, and I think at the beginning of Vietnam. And we found out at the military at that time, they never repelled from this helicopter. So we're being pushed to do something that was pretty dangerous. And so collectively, the two rescue squads, Rescue 1 and Rescue 2, we got to talking, we were thinking, we're being pushed to do something that has a hazard. So we went up to our battalion chief and politely told him that, this ain't gonna go. Well, he says, the more you train, the better you get. Well, 3 days later, a classmate of mine from Kamehameha, Frederick Frudenberg, fell to his death because of this. And then a couple of years later, we had the same type of confrontation with management. We're not following policies and procedures. And what happened is this helicopter broke up in pieces, and there were 3 victims. So all these two situations, stayed with me in my na'au, and especially when Herb Connie says, well, we're going to be the test pilots. So hearing that and knowing that we're going to be having a large vessel with Hōkūleʻa, that my mind was made up that we're going to concentrate only on life safety for everyone who would come out, and especially life safety for Hōkūleʻa, because we saw her as a family member. And so we continued on, and on my days off from Herb, we were, I was with the fire department. We were beginning to learn about the Nalehia. We took her out sailing outside of Hawaii Kai, the personalities and all of that. I had a hard time steering her. And then coming back to Hawaii Kai, we weren't making any progress. And the reason being, if you look at the front, the manos, the front part of the canoe is very low. There's not enough hulls in there. And what was giving me problems with steering was the fact that the 2 hulls are close together. The other problem was that this is all fiberglass. Fiberglass doesn't float. Now, if it was core, would be different. But take a look at all of the features of Nalehia. She's beautiful, no doubt. The yakus, that are cross pieces that you have there, are graduated in height so that the pola, the deck in the middle, can at least be raised up. The paddlers in the hull, the gunnels on the side did not impact them as far as coming up under their arms to prevent them from paddling and moving the canoe. So look at all of that, and then look at this. This is Hōkūleʻa, the maxi model, so to speak. And all of this is the mastery of Herb Connie, a brilliant engineer and designer. We were here getting ready to install 10 yako, and then John and the Bowmans built the yakos. And then so, how long were they? 20?
No, they were like 24 feet wide, 8 inches by 8 inches, and 1/4 inch laminations.
And what's the weight?
300 plus pounds,
So these are the yako. We're getting her ready for the lashings. And what Herb did in his mind compared to Nalehia, I don't know if he used that as a model, but he widened the hulls on Hōkūleʻa. He raised it up so you get more buoyancy, and he created the most beautiful keel underneath, of which you guys were responsible for. But he elongated the yakos so that the cap on top would provide a wide pola so that you can have crew movement and easy sail handling, and in fact, 2 sail units, right? So take a look at the ends. Like John said, what we have here is 28 1/4 inch by 5.5 inch wide laminations. And they finished it off and then rounded the edges. Now take a look at the lashings we had. These lashings were from regular outrigger canoes because of the yakus are either round or oval. There was no record of rectangular or square yaku, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we had to go with it. This is the beginning. But we made sure that when we did the lashings that we did not let anybody on their own go and do it, because you know if you're familiar with lashing the regular outrigger canoe, you gotta really make that thing pa'a and really tight so she don't kaki as you're going even from Molokai. So this was the lashings that we put on. This is Papa Mao's lashings. And you look at it and you have to tell yourself, this is a really tight lashing. Sad to say, before we started to go to Tahiti, there's a big controversy between the two lashings. And it was really uncomfortable because I'm hearing the mana'o of modern day voyagers, sailors, but here we have the original navigator from Micronesia. Here we have one of the steering sweeps of which was made by Kimo Austin from Outrigger Canoe Club. And he's a fabulous wood craftsman like John, very good. So this steering sweep, Herb had just lashed it onto what they call as a pin and gudgeon. Okay, the sweep is going to sort of rotate around this pin. That pin on that crosspiece, what is that called? The crosspiece?
No, it was probably ironwood,
Okay.
Ito.
Okay. So anyway, the hole doesn't go through, but it's elongated at the back. So when you want to use the sweep, you lift it up, and that pin is going to fall back in that slot, and it gives you a 45-degree or thereabouts angle of the sweep in order for you to steer. So this is the beginning, and since then there's been many, many improvements that John has been involved in, and Billy and everybody else. So this is the beginning. The lashings are not just left like that with one line, quarter-inch line. Herb stepped aside for the photograph, and he came back. But every component of Hōkūleʻa, Herb was ma'a to everything, and he practiced the different types of riggings for whatever part. And what was fabulous about, and I was impressed, as a designer for Hōkūleʻa, he never carried blueprints. Everything was in his head. And he's just a marvelous artist and designer. And so coming to prepare Hōkūleʻa for her launching is Sam Ka'ai from Lahaina. Sam is attaching kani o Hōkūleʻa. Kani o Hōkūleʻa does not have eyes. Kani o Hōkūleʻa is holding up a bright mother of pearl shell. On the other hull, the wahine hull, the ama hull, will be wahine o Hōkūleʻa, the most powerful of the two. And the only time she would come on Hōkūleʻa is when Hōkūleʻa is ready to leave for Tahiti. In the meantime, during our training sails at Kualoa, and then our inter-island voyages to look for crew members, but also put Hōkūleʻa to the test, Sam would help us out as far as any information that he could give. But let's go back come forward about maybe 30 years. Sam's possessions, kani o Hōkūleʻa, wahine o Hōkūleʻa, across the street, all of the homes there were victims of the recent Lahaina fire, the Mo'olele, right? Yeah. Famous canoe.
Across from the Pioneer Inn was their museum.
And
those are there.
John mentions Pioneer Inn that was owned by my mother's sister's family, the Freelands. And my mother's sister's home, also not far away from Sam, was completely gone in that fire. And likewise, like I said, the Pioneer Inn. One of the other test pilots is Buffalo Keaulana. I mean, you can go on Google and look at everything he's well known for. And Buffalo was going to go, we knew that. In this picture, Buffalo was concerned because we're going to be launching Hōkūleʻa that morning. He was concerned about a couple of coral heads that were sticking up, and I wasn't aware of them. But he's so ma'a to everything on the sea and underneath, so we went up, and he felt that once we take Hōkūleʻa up towards the island for the ho'opupu and sacrifice, that these coral heads would not impact the ceremonies. So I say this, well, what of the crab claw seal? Etchings were found on the lava fields on the Big Island in Maui. And so this is the first attempt. So Kimo Austin and Herb Connie, they cut a canvas seal, and then Kimo Austin brought a redwood long piece, and they lashed it to the grommets, and then it took the shape of the seal. So this is the beginning of the crab claw seal. The after seal is the same size. When Hōkūleʻa was launched, the seals were not up when we had her in the water. We had to go near the island and do the sacrifice, the ceremony, so the seals were down. After the ceremonies, she was brought back, the sails were put up, and a fun sail was done with children and everybody else. I stayed on shore with Papa Mau and Mr. Wright Bowman. There was light wind, they were on a port tack, and the pressure in the sail created a lot of downward weight. So what happened, these booms broke and we could hear it, but Herbie Connie had the wherewithal to have masking tape, so they fixed it up. The winds are still light, they tried, and they brought Hōkūleʻa back. But that's the beginning. So Papa Mau was standing next to me, he says, I want how? That's a wood, a very good wood. So I said, well, Papa, tomorrow we go up to Mauna Willie, up there got good kind. So we went up there. We found about 6 or 8 pieces. And then we brought it down, we stripped the bark, we came down here to cool off. So what Papa Mau is doing, he's adding the ends of the how piece. If you look in the back, the tape section is the original redwood. So you can see the difference in diameter compared to what Papa Mau is working on. So Papa Mau is working on what they call a scarf joint. That means that the two how pieces are going to be joined like this and wrapped and seized very tight. Now this is a finished product. Okay, both seals are the how pieces that Papa Mau put together. If you look good in the middle, there's a dark spot. That is the scarf joint. So I was working with the fire department. We were clearing helipads up in the clouds up there, and I knew they were sailing, but I needed to get a good shot, aerial shot, so we can all look at the personality of Hōkūleʻa sailing in light winds like this. So when I developed the film, Papa Mau says, no good. So he said that the two sails were too big. And he says, the way it is now, sometimes the back sail is stealing the wind and the okole is gonna slide down. So he said before we go to Tahiti, he wants to shorten the back sail and then bring it in more close. He didn't like the top part. You see the long straight piece on the top. He says that's no good, because if you pull the sails up in a storm or anything like that, if you're at your mooring, you're still gonna have a lot of canvas up there. So he liked this, and I also took photographs going maybe 360 degrees from 20 feet down, or maybe up to 100 feet. And we looked at all sides of Hōkūleʻa. And this was, Papa Mau really liked that. He was fascinated. The other test pilot, Clifford Mau, besides Buffalo, one of the best lifeguards for the state of Hawaii. When Makapu was bad, John, Makapu can get bad, right?
Yes, the wash, yeah.
What?
And now,
10 feet shore break.
well, yeah, 10 to 12 feet.
Yeah.
Easy.
So the first person that city calls is Clifford Mau. Right around the corner is Sandy Beach. Can it get bad too, yeah?
Plenty current.
Yeah. So the injuries at Sandy Beach and at Makapu was usually paralyzed here or broken here, and all of the upper extremities all around here, all bruised, and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So Clifford would make sure that his victims are taken care of. Ambulance was there, and he'd go on, waiting for the next victim. Hopefully that nobody would be there to get hurt. So this is the addition to this test pilot thing. These two steering sweeps are creations by John, and this is the second set.
Yeah.
Now, John, tell everybody now on the back sweep. How thick and how big were those caps, and how did you attach them?
Yeah, Uncle Wright and I, we cut, the blade part is made out of how, that's like 7 feet long, and each section was 12 feet wide, like that first, like a big square. And so when on that trip, Mao cut that square one, and we used those parts and we saved them. But what happens is, because you're on the canoe steering paddle, the Hōkūleʻa is pivoting on a pin, but yet you had to have the handle really long. So now when you look at Hōkūleʻa, they got laminated curved ones that don't just stick out, but they stick down. And so then I was thinking, the next thing would be to have like a Hobie cap, like a rudder, but Hawaiians didn't have. Well, I think if somebody showed these old Hawaiians in the past they probably would have something like that. But when you steering these things, like this is the way we steer it at the beginning with these steering paddles, they would be locked into that back yaku and tied with a lanyard in the front yaku. So in case you lost it, it wouldn't snap back at.
Here we have other test pilots. Buffalo, Carolina. Buffalo always steered in the Akea hull, which is the male hull, the Kani hull. I always steered in the Wahine hull. Inclusion, inclusion, right? And so behind you have Tommy Holmes, a brilliant man. If you look at AI and Google now, Tommy was that way back there. Brilliant man. So Herb Connie is sitting in the white shirt and he's in glee because all of the people that's coming on board, his test pilots, he's just amazed at the kokua that he is getting because this is his canoe. And we looked at it as Herb's canoe. I mean, he designed it. And so here I'm steering in the Wahine hull, the Ama hull. Now when Herb designed Hōkūleʻa, he copied the back to be like the Va'akaukahi, which is your outrigger canoes, where the number 6 person is doing the steering. But he had a seat there. If we were to sit in the seat, and we did that in the beginning, it didn't give us enough leverage to pull that steering paddle in or whatever where we wanted to go. The steering paddle weighs 50 pounds and is 9 feet long. Okay, so what happens to us, we're holding this formation, our body is in the same angle. What happens there is your number 4, 5, and all the way down your spine, and your sacroiliac starts to react to this body angle. But not only that, all up on the shoulders, so because I'm holding the hoi really tight and making the corrections, so all of the tension is all up here to the neck. But if you look in the back, that white flat piece there, that's part of the aft mono. So what Buffalo and I would do when we're in pain, but we're not going to tell anybody, we push our back against it, just go like that for lomi, yeah? And that's the only way we could at least deal with this pain. So this is the trial run. And sometimes the handle of the blade, we had a line on it. It becomes a blunt force trauma weapon because the thing would come into you, and usually because I'm on this side, I would get hit here, 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 and here. It could be lethal. But that's the beginning. We didn't know, and test pilots are not aware of different functions on their aircraft, or in this case, Hōkūleʻa, and you're going to end up with bumps. We were sailing up in Honana on the Big Island, and up there the water was glassy. So we had to take her out, way, way out, where we get a little bit more wind. This is Kaipo Moses, and that's his uniform. He works for the national parks. So he came out, we explained, we don't let anybody walk up there and grab the hoi and take their chance at it. So we told everybody what to do, and I felt good that we had light winds, we're not moving fast, and we're going to be sailing on one tack. So he went up there, and I thought, wow, I got to get this picture. I mean, with the malo and all that. And yeah, he has a Bulova watch on, And so all of these things are happening. And then we began training down here Oahu, and this young lady was watching Duki Kohulu steer. And the way she was looking, I told Duki, have her come up there and you show her how. So I gave her a briefing as to what to expect. But the stance, the pose she took was perfect. Now look at her right foot. It's coming close to the shaft. That shaft can break away if the opening above about a 1/4 inch from the side of Hōkūleʻa opens up and the great forces of water coming through, the paddle will spin. But her feet will get the first indication by a sort of vibration coming up the shaft before it falls away. So this is the most perfect position I've ever seen anybody in steering, and it has to be a wahine, but like again, inclusion, right? Right? So here we have other test pilots. The person on the left is John Wittenberg. He's from Germany, but he lives in Kahakuloa. He builds these big ships, and Herb invited him on, and along with his friend Jake Thomas. And he was sharing the sensations he gets with different types of vessels. The person next to Herb Connie is Dave Lyman, and he's the heart of Hōkūleʻa as far as I'm concerned. He's a harbor pilot. He's well respected throughout the Pacific. He brings in ships maybe a minimum of 100 feet to 600 feet into Honolulu Harbor, while the captain is next to him. He sails a monohull, but everything about maritime law, everything or anything, he would pass on to Herb. He wouldn't wait for Herb to ask a question. He just filled that file for Herb. The gentleman right next to Mr. Lyman is Livan Sikera. Okay, he designed and built Mo'olele. So Mo'olele is smaller as far as Wa'akalua, and here we're sailing up and down from Lahaina. We're shooting down to just above Molokai, and we're coming back up. We're making big runs up and down. So he's telling us about the personality of the Mo'olele compared to how big Hōkūleʻa is and what to expect in different oceans. The unique thing about this picture is that the following day, all four of them, and Lani Kavaloa in the orange on the suite, Tommy Holmes, you get a profile, and a selected crew of Lahaina candidates would take Hōkūleʻa across the Alenuihaha Channel for the first time in 800 years. So this was a big event for us. And before we got underway, each one of the gentlemen there were telling us what to expect, the type of weather and sea conditions that we're going to meet once we go across the Alenuihaha. They says we're going to meet Ma'alie, glassy, or the most violent seas ever. So we didn't know. Well, anyway, we made the crossing, and Friday the 13th, but so what? You know, it's going to be the test for us, right? Because we saw ma'atu, you know, all of these things, that Bermuda Triangle, you step on a banana, right? You know, all of these things. But this is the true test. So anyway, this is the Maui crew, or part of the Maui crew that took her across. You have Samka Ai in the Molo there. You have Livan Sikera down here. But there's two men right here. There's Lani Kavaloa here with the blue, and Snake Ahi up there. They exuded an aura to me. And in my mana'o, what I was getting from them was a can do, will do, shall do spirit. And it's the same aura that I got from John Cruz. So these three men were veterans from Vietnam, and they just came home and they come to Hōkūleʻa. So, you know, they were exuding this. And people ask me, well, how come only them? I says, no, it's because all of the people on the rescue squad, for me and all of us, that was something, the vibes we got from each other, that you can do, you will do, you shall do. So here's the first three. This little gentleman down tucked in the way over there, Aimoku Pali. Now he lives way up Mauka. When you talk about ahapua'a, anything, everything he grows, the food up there is the best. He brings it down to the people down at the seashore. That doesn't mean he doesn't know anything about the sea. He knew every type of limu, where to get it, when to get it, crabbing. He would go in and spearfish and all of that. But he left it up to the people down by the sea. Because he was from up Mauka, he had to go. So selection of these crew members, in my mind and Herb's mind, everybody who came out could qualify. Because what was happening now, they're going back in time and they figure that they've been so modernized, but here, this vessel, Hōkūleʻa, is sort of waking them up. So we cross the Alenuihaha. It was Ma'alie. It took us about 5 hours and it was glassy. We were hitting close to 13 knots, and that's fast for Hōkūleʻa. So we get into Keauholi by the airport, and it's barren. It's just, no man's land, right?
Yeah.
And you can see the old lava fields maybe 100 years ago, and the peely grass all standing up and frozen. And then Herb tells me, he says, "You hear that?" I says, "No." He says, "I hear chanting." Then I listen. Yeah, I could hear Oli. And I'm thinking, Oli, barren land, who? So the volume of the Oli gets louder, the movement in the peely grass starts to be obvious. Iolani Lohini steps out. She didn't know, nobody knew we were there. If to get access to where she was, you needed a tank. Really?
Oh, no, yeah.
So anyway, the big question is, how did she get there? Why? What have you? So she walks to the edge of the pali, which is dirt that is sort of, falling down. She continues into her moment, and everybody knows about how she is when she does these rare moments relative to spiritual moments, especially in hula. So Iolani slides down, but she's still standing up. I dive off of Hōkūleʻa, I swim in, I put my arm underneath her knees and I carry her and I says, "Tutu, you're gonna be okay." And she's looking at me, glassy-eyed, but she's talking to somebody else. She points to Hōkūleʻa, she points to the moana, she points up, she points to Mauka, and she's continuing in her moment. So I gingerly climb up the pali, and now I gotta go through this forest of peely grass and lantana. Now, if you're familiar with lantana, when lantana branches get this big or bigger, the hook on the lantana is big. So what happens there? The cut is pretty bad. I'm bare feet, soaking wet. The lava, which was old from many years ago, it feels like razor blades. And I know I'm cutting my feet and the lantana, all my thigh and my calves, all got little blood spots running down. It's not profusely. My concern was my package. Iolani. She was the number one. So I work my way through this forest and I can see Hōkūleʻa's on top of the sail moving into Honokahau Harbor. And then we finally reach there, put her down. She's invited on board. Herb Kani greets her and shows her around Hōkūleʻa, and he says, "Iolani, tomorrow morning we're going to sail to your home in Kealakekua. We want you to come with us. Then we're going to deliver Hōkūleʻa to Honanau. We're going to leave her there for about a month. Please come with us." And she, she accepted. Next morning she came, and as we're sailing down, I catch her in this moment where she's talking to someone or something. And I didn't want to be maha'oi at all, to put the camera in front and do that. I always hid my camera. So we're coming into the outside of Kealakekua, and she's talking to somebody because that's her home. And Herb is going about, the good captain that he is, he's making sure everybody is okay, no lines overboard, anything that can harm anybody, and he lets Iolani go. So we come in, and Hōkūleʻa glides around in this pocket, in this bay. And she stops, we drop our anchor, we pull back, and the sails we leave up, so there's no wind in there. I look up in the pali and I see this white bird fly out from this little hole up in the pali. I jump in the water with my camera, I swim in and I start climbing up. And I'm thinking, I'm not gonna maha'oi the guy's house, right? The bird. So I found my position and I said, "Oh no, I don't want these tree in front of me. I need a clear shot. The thing was what I was looking for. I needed to get that monument by itself and Hōkūleʻa by herself. But the way she was moving, it would soon come to the point where the monument would be behind a sail. I didn't want that, because what we have here is historical moments of the past with that monument, and then historical moments of the future with Hōkūleʻa. So regardless of the tree, I had to get it, because I took about maybe 3 shots, and then Hōkūleʻa covered it. So Iolani is on board Hōkūleʻa, and she brings with her different types of limo from different parts of the island, and she says, I'm gonna make lei and make these friends meet each other. What she was saying, that this different limo from different parts of Mokuoki'awe are friends, but she wants them to meet each other. So she makes the lei, and I say, Tutu, excuse me, please. I says, Tutu, this is such an historical moment, not only this moment, but Hōkūleʻa in total. I says, I'm filming, regular snapshot film, and I'm tape recording, and I'm sketching, and I have a logbook. Tutu, this is for education. And she smiled and she went, education. So I took that to mean, I got her, okay. I never had my camera out. So all the time she's doing this, putting the lei together for ho'okupu, she's giving a low incantation, or ole, so to speak, or prayer. And I'm not being mahaoe and staring at her. I'm moving about, but my eye, look, going like that, and I'm watching her, and I'm looking for my camera. And I studied her sequence of giving. So here you have her hand open, and then the ho'okupu, you can see it in a blur over the top of the paddle. And she's going through this incantation. And I think she made about maybe 7 or 8. But let me point to this gentleman in the yellow. His name is Stephen Morse, wonderful educator. And he started picking up on what's happening with Hōkūleʻa, and he's preparing his programs for his students, not so much to tell them how to sail Hōkūleʻa, but all of the beginnings that you have to know before coming on the big boat. And Aimoku Pale is in the front. He took Hōkūleʻa across to the Alinuihaha Channel. His wife flew up, but his baby, when we were sailing in Lahaina, good sailing, they always sat up in the front. The baby always wanted that spray coming up from the front of Hōkūleʻa. When he dried up because of the sun, he would cry. He wanted to be wet all the time. So this is the first baby. So we get to Honanau. The matriarch of Honanau is Tutu Clara, 83 years old. So she stays with us every day. We're there for a month. And she makes sure that all the keiki come out on Hōkūleʻa. They don't, kapulu anything. Everything has to be in order and clean. And you don't jump off a Hōkūleʻa any place you want. So she was keeping everybody in check. The night before we were supposed to sail out of Honanau, in the morning I told her, Tutu, tonight we're going to David Roy's home up Mauka, and we're going to have paina. And she says, aole. And I says, well, Tutu, you're always with us. She says, no, I'm going to see my friend. So about 5 o'clock, she gets ready because she lives next door, and she has a pet pig called Boy, and she gave the pig to the nephew. She comes out in white lace, no glasses, her hair down. She walks up the roadway, going up the national park parking lot, and she tells me, and really stern, she says, don't follow me. Okay. We go up to David Roy's house. We have the paina up there. All good fellowship, singing. David Roy and his family, they tell us about the magic of Mokuoki'awe and all of this, and restorations of the heiau. So we have KCCN on, KCCN radio, and the nice music playing, and they cut in. And it says, Mauna Loa has just erupted. And so, all of these magical, mystical moments of truth and nice are beginning to happen once we cross the Alinuihaha Channel. And that's what I thought. So panic sets in with me because of gravity flow, and I don't know where Mauna Loa is. And I'm thinking lava's going to come down, and we better get to Hōkūleʻa right away. But, that's our baby, first thing first. So we get in this Jeep with Kaipa Digua from Kona. We start driving down, and not fast, and the road is, sort of curving like this. All of a sudden, this big thing cuts across in front and goes across the headlights, and he sort of comes back, maybe liking the headlights. And so part of the wing was in the headlights. So Kaipa says, Pu'eo, owl, was white, was big. So as we get down to the flats, the Pu'eo puts on Tom Cruise, stick like that, up, and it disappeared. So we get on Hōkūleʻa, KCCN is playing music, and they're talking about Mauna Loa erupting. The next morning we have breakfast, and then we're getting Tutu ready in the other kupuna. So I go up to Tutu and I says, Tutu, you know what happened last night? She just smiled. Then looked at her and says, Tutu, are you Pele? She just smiled. So we put her on Hōkūleʻa and we sail up. As we start sailing up the coast to Kona Village, KCCN comes on and they says Mauna Loa has just stopped erupting. So look at these events that are happening, and many, many more continue to happen. Now we come back to Tutu again. At the far point of Haleokeawe, you can see here where all the ki'i and everything are. Tutu would be outside there on the point, and it appeared as if she's talking to something or somebody. So when she came in, I said, Tutu, hey, you're far away. We love you. We don't want you to fall in. She says, Aole, that she's not going to come close. She says, my sister died in a terrible automobile accident, and she came back as Mano. And so I'm thinking, you got to be talking about Aumakua. She says, my sister has a crease between her eyes, and it's like a cross. And she calls me and she says, boy, all you fella on Hōkūleʻa, if you get hurt in the ocean, my sister gonna come underneath and save you. Now let's move up about a month, and we're in Kaihaʻi. We're getting ready to sail across Alenuihaha Channel. Tutu Clara wanted to sail with us. We says, no, it's gonna be too treacherous. We're gonna fly you over to Lahaina. We go up to Mahukona, we start coming down. The sailing is good. Alenuihaha, her personality, we got to put up with, yeah. For some reason, the top of the ironwood shaft on the top of the sail breaks off maybe about 6 inches. The thing comes down and just glazes me. I think if it came, it would have been more lethal if it hit me here. So it grazed me here, and I start, getting dizzy. So I lean down, and I'm okay. And I'm getting some spray on my face. And I can see the beautiful aquamarine water, passing by, and white foam and all of that. All of a sudden, this black coloration comes up in front of me. And at that time, exactly that moment, Herb Connie yells, Mano! Shark. This shark came out of the water between the sweeps, went up, and then went down. And the tail came up and went down. A couple of months later, Herb Connie wrote about this incident in Honolulu Magazine. So you have this situation happening. It's just continuous on. And getting back to Haleokeawe, there's this corridor where the kupuna walk, and there's a crunching sound. It's because the granules of the old lava and the sand and the coral, when you step on it, it has a nice crunching sound. So we're on Hōkūleʻa, and when we hear crunching, people are coming out. And so one of them is Papa Moses, Abraham Moses, who lives there. He's always in Malu. He works for the national park. All of this kupuna come out, and they're speaking fluent Hawaiian, but it is graceful. It's not harsh. It's melodic. And so what we have now is kupuna coming out. We have this another layer. We're taking Hōkūleʻa up and to show the people. Now we have this layer of kupuna coming on Hōkūleʻa. And they're speaking in Hawaiian and talking about the past. And in this case, Papa Moses is telling us about the area in the back and telling us about where people lived, the type of fish and seafood that was being brought up. And he is hot, but he says, I love the heat. And I thought, oh, yeah, me too. I like to burn. So we had a bucket and water like that. We pour him over. And he sailed all the way up to Kaihaʻi from Kona Village, in fact, from Honanao. Then, out of this corridor, with a crunch, 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 every time I hear the crunch, 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 to me in my na'au, magic people coming to Hōkūleʻa. Because that's the way it was. The first one is Iolani Luahini, all other kupuna, Tutu Clara, Papa Moses. And this moment was, I was on Hōkūleʻa getting her ready, then I hear the polite voice of Herb Kani asking someone in a gentle way if you can, someone, I think, ask him if Kokua to take something or someone to Hōkūleʻa, which was nearby. So, I look over, and because I can hear this conversation, I look over and I look at this gentle man. I mean, my na'au was active. I mean, it was telling me that this person is special. I didn't know who he was, okay? But in my mind, my na'au told me, this person is going to Tahiti. That's the way it was. He came up on board, and as gentleman as he is, even to this day, he introduced me. My name is Billy Richards. And the way Billy walked around Hōkūleʻa was as if he was home. Now try to imagine you own something and you lose it, and Lost and Found finds it. And they contact you, and you go and you look at your possession, and everything is one piece. I watch him walk around. It's like he had his possession, his home. I mean, that's the way I felt about Snake Ahi and others. But what I got from Billy was this can do, will do, shall do. Okay? Well, this is the fourth one from Vietnam. Okay? There's going to be many more. But that's that feeling I get in my na'au. We had Lani Kavaloa. He came on board Lahaina. He's of the family Manu Kahai Ali'i. Manu, if you look at him, to me, he resembles my Kamehameha. Manu Kahai Ali'i's family came, made a pa'ina for us at Lahaina, and they played music. One of his children is Willie K, but Willie K was younger at that time. So the melody and all of that was really enhancing the spirit of Hōkūleʻa in Lahaina. Lani Kavaloa, once we were up in the Big Island, told me, I gotta take a break, I gotta go home, up to Kalapana. He had to go hunt and get fish and opihi for his family, but he also had a contract to make 2 saddles. He was involved with rodeo, but he also had a contract to make these long whips, whip and make the noise. He came back, and look at his face. It's very stern. It's very different than we know Lani. So he says, I got to talk to you. And I says, yeah, what's up? He says, I got to tell you, something's going to happen. And I says, okay, what? He says, Hōkūleʻa will be okay. The crew will be okay. The water will be nice, okay? The Akea hull, the male hull, will be completely submerged. Okay. Hōkūleʻa will be offshore from a well-known harbor. And I says, well, give me the indication. Are there cranes like Pearl Harbor, Honolulu Harbor, whatever? He says, I cannot, it's far away. He says, a steel hull foreign vessel will come to Hōkūleʻa. I mean, to hear this, that's pretty heavy, But Lani had this ability to see ahead. Ike Papaloa. Go to Nana Ike Kumu, the 2nd edition, chapter 7. Kawena Pukui. Ike Papaloa. So he had this ability, like we all do here, to see ahead in early warning. So he presented this to us. And in my mind, my mana'o, we still had Molokai, Oahu, and the Kauai. But we would have to prepare for this event. Okay, so that was Lani. We get to Molokai. The Molokai crew members, they go on a sweep and they have fun. It's not easy. If Herb tells you, I want to take Hōkūleʻa right, you push that sweep to the left. So, this coordination, they picked it up immediately. So you had 6 Molokai family members on the sweeps. The person on the bottom there is Liko Martin. He sailed with us from the Big Island. When we were not sailing, Herb would allow, and you'd have Liko Martin, Billy Richards, Kapa de Gua, and other people singing to Hōkūleʻa. Hōkūleʻa is our family member. Hōkūleʻa for me was my daughter. So you get this beautiful music. And I'm thinking in my na'au, okay, our child, this living person, like a normal living person, we would sing and we put flowers and everything on that. So I didn't think this was a problem that we saw Hōkūleʻa as a family member relative to a science project, okay? So this is Molokai. Then coming to Hōkūleʻa is Penny Rollins, and she's 6 feet, but she exudes this sister, she exudes the human form of aloha, the human form of mana, and not even knowing her background. In my na'au, I was saying she's going to go to Tahiti, you know. So several days later, I called her, but I was being whispered to by management. You're not finding enough women, so don't look for any more. But in my na'au, I was thinking, well, we got a couple more islands. We're going to find them. So the Molokai people and a lot of the kupuna who represented ancient Molokai, they brought this whole kupu down to us. And when they brought it to us, everything about this whole kupu was hula. Everything about it. Now I'm thinking now, from the uplands, this hula representation is coming to Hōkūleʻa, down by the sea. So we put it on. The tail end of this is long, it's flapping on the water. And this picture was taken 6 hours into our sail to Oahu. And the lei was being sprinkled and sprayed upon by salt water. The sun was so intense, and I was thinking, well, the hokupu would lose its body. It didn't. It seemed to be growing. So here's another situation. We come to Oahu, New York. Excuse me, but we pull into Kaimana. And then now the A-team, management, yeah? Good guys. They come down and they tell me, it says, get her ready because tomorrow morning we're going to show her. We needed funding, yes. And we all had to show her. So look at the background. Oh, malie, yeah? So I go home that night and I feel uncomfortable because the wind changes. From the trade winds, it goes to southerly, Kona winds, okay, southwesterlies. So I get up and living in a townhouse down in Kahala. I drive down Kahala Avenue, and the mist from the ocean is coming over Kahala. That tells me the ocean is bad, right? Yeah. South winds like that. I go up to Diamond Head, and I look down and I can hear this roaring. And in my na'au was saying, Hōkūleʻa is not going to go out. So I go down to San Susi, I swim out to Hōkūleʻa, I go in our compartment, and we get Watco oil. We always, refresh our wood. I start painting the sweep, I paint the floor, I paint everything, and I figure I'm going to get fired because 18 is coming down, yeah, the good guys. So I jump off, and I go in, management comes down, and they says, she's not ready. I says, no, she's not ready because we're not going. In the meantime, in the back, the waves that are breaking at least 15 feet, and if people are familiar outside of Outrigger Canoe Club, you got old mans and you get castles, right? Castle. So what you see here was all big waves, and there's no way we're going to take Hōkūleʻa out. So I figured, okay, I'm fired. I said, okay, I'll go back in the fire department. So we looked at it, and I thought, okay, let's look at the situation. The channel going outside of Kaimana Hotel is only maybe 40 feet wide. Hōkūleʻa is 60. So the turbulence from the surf outside and all of that would cocky her around. And so we'd have the two ends over the reef, one side Outrigger Canoe Club, the other side the natatorium. If we were able to go out, and we had a 35 horsepower engine, I think the power is now down to 20 horsepower. Okay. So if we were able to make it out past the windsock, she may have, because of the waves, stormy conditions, would have turned her broadside. Maybe she would have floated in. But if she turned with bow forward or stern forward, she would surf in and climb the wall of the natatorium and end up on the bleachers. So this is a life safety situation in my na'au. And the crew members that we would have on board would be all of us, Bailey, all of us. Would there be a fatality or fatalities? Yes, definitely so. Came in, I thought I was fired, and I was told a couple days later, get her ready for Kauai. Okay, so we get her ready, we sail to Kauai. We get to Kauai, everybody comes out, and meets us through Bugi Kalama. And this canoe comes up right next to us, and this young lady steps on board, Kiani Reiner. And I looked at her and I says, wow, you're gonna go. Because she exuded, what I mean go is she's going to Tahiti. What she exuded was this able-bodied person capable of sailing Hōkūleʻa anywhere around the world. And let me take this time to tell you that this is Mrs. John Cruz. And the two of them together, brilliant minds. She sails with her father out of Outrigger Canoe Club. They race yachts above the sea, below the sea. Kiani Reiner. Till this day, I hold her in my na'au as probably one of the best on Hōkūleʻa. You show me who you have now, in my na'au, I'm going to say, that's number one. But you should meet their son, Kepa. I see him as a leader. I mean, you're going to Congress or more? Brilliant. Every day we're in Hanalei, Lani Kavaloa would blow the pool. Right now, he's giving thanks for the day, and he's welcoming the night. What you see is Venus making her transit across the backstays of Hōkūleʻa. These are the lines coming up from the top mast. Now look, his opu is out because he's gonna blast this pool. He's gonna go from a low register, really low, and then take it all the way up high until he's exhaling, and sort of ready to faint. But Lani would do this all the time. And so I get a phone call and saying that get 18 crew members ready. We're going to go to Oahu. And I'm thinking, no, 18 is too much. Because I figured 14. Because we're going to have to make this run up to Oahu. So the A team comes down, good guys. And so the total amount of people is now about 23. Okay, we weren't ready for that. We didn't have enough water for food and all of that, life preservers and all of that. They bring on board, I think 7 or 5. These red gas cans for outboard motors, okay, filled with gas. At that time of the year, the manufacturers, there's a vent valve on top for venting the fumes, and it doesn't work. So 3 of these gas cans were left up in the front by the forward sail, and we began to smell, this fuel. We moved them back. So there's 6 of us steering on the sweeps, 2 of us on the boat hulls, total up the weight. The gas cans coming on told us maybe about a little over 400 pounds. So what happens there, all of this weight is putting Hōkūleʻa's configuration like that. This is the Hōkūleʻa, okay? We start getting underway. The weather is bad. Well, anyway, here comes the orders. We're told that Hōkūleʻa has to be tied up at a pier on Oahu in 24 hours. And I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding. You gotta be kidding. So we wait. David Lyman, as calm as he is, he says, no, it's gonna take us 3 days to get to Oahu. I'm gonna go 100 miles up above Oahu, then skim maybe Makapu, or come down on the west side and take her in. So this was the tension right there, okay? We can't even make 40 miles. We go up, we're coming back down south. We try to go up, maybe we're going a little bit north, and we're going around the clock. So we're into our second day. And so management, Herb is tired and he's sleeping. So management, good guys, 2 of them, I'm talking to them. And now Lani's dream is coming to me. I look at our baby, Hōkūleʻa, and she is being worn and torn. She's somebody's kupuna, okay? She's somebody. And she's not looking good, like she's abused. The 2 manos are going like this, like this. Papa Mao expected that, okay? The floorboard that I'm standing on is 2-piece, now it's going like this, okay? The power cover that we had, later on we found out was made upside down, okay? So what happens is we're getting drippage coming in. Okay, tablespoon, okay, 1 cup of water, it adds up gallon, okay, more gallons. The condition of Hōkūleʻa at that time was telling me that she's calling out, I want to go in to Nawiliwili, which is right nearby. So Lani's dream is coming to me. And then so I think, Kamehameha went through this. What was his intent? And they're looking, we're going to this. What is our intent, right? Russia to go to Oahu. So I start talking to management. I says, look, her condition is such that we cannot go. We won't go. Let's go into Nauwili and assess the situation. I didn't get an approval. Okay. It's as if somebody turned the faucet on and water just started flowing in, and the hull started to settle. Exactly what Lonnie said. Okay, so all of this takes place, and then we start salvaging everything. But one of the moments that really hit me hard was Billy Richards and Clifford Amau on the lower part over here, where the Okole is in the water. They were underneath, and they're having a tow line to wrap around the back yakos, maybe miss the next one, and tie around the next one in succession. So if we get a tow, the pool would be from the submerged part versus the high part, which I thought, or we thought, could cocky the hulls like this. While they were there underwater and they get the pounding of this, of the part of the pola, beneath them, because of the opala that was coming out, and when I say opala, was the holly, all the coconut leaves was broken, yeah? So I look underwater and it's like butterflies. They're going, floating down to the bottom. Below Billy and Clifford was a school of sharks, okay? But they saw they know, the water people. What had happened, when I looked down, the sharks weren't going like this as far as what I saw. They were like this, But here, two cool-head people who we depend on, who I know had to go to Hōkūleʻa, to Tahiti, were there, and here's Clifford Amau. Okay, so we're there. We had enough food, maybe to last us, maybe one more day and enough water. Boogie Kalama goes up to the high end of the mano in the front. He gets his guitar. He starts singing Queen's Jubilee. Now go on, Apple and all that. Go listen to that. The tune is so spirit-lifting. And it was giving us that lift there because we didn't know how long we were going to be out there. And so at the end of his singing of Queen's Jubilee, which was so beautiful and meaningful to all of us, we see a rooster tail. And that rooster tail, what I mean is this wake from a ship out there. So as it gets to be more pronounced, it's obvious that it's sea flame. So here we have steel hull, foreign vessel. Okay, Lonnie's dream, right? So far we got the 3 hits already. Sea Flight is usually making its run to Nauwili, but she's going down to Kipahulu. All of a sudden, Sea Flight makes this really critical right turn, bending like that, and she's coming straight for us to this yellow raft out here. And so you see the thing hanging down. It has metallic components in it. So when we sail, Herb would always tell me, "Oh, go put that up." And I thought, this is not local. It's ugly. What that is, I found that's for radar, right?
Yeah.
That guy got in contact with Sea Flight. And so that's why Sea Flight came to us. So the captain of Sea Flight was on his radio talking to us. If there's any injuries that he called the Coast Guard, what have you. Anyway, we got towed in, and the press was all over the place. And then John and Billy and Boogie, they took Hōkūleʻa up into Stanford Archie's place, canoe up in the valley. And then we put Hōkūleʻa into this bed of nice trees. What kind of trees in the back there? Anyways, this is a Menehune home. Okay.
Yeah. By the Alekoko fish pond, yeah.
Okay, so we leave her there. Board of inquiry, the owners come down and they start inquiring, well, what happened, and all of that. So Hōkūleʻa had to be rebuilt again. But this is the reason why we took Hōkūleʻa throughout the state, because sea trials. And that was my kuleana as bosun. And with Herb, we wanted to see, when we took her throughout the islands and different sea conditions, what would happen to the interior of Hōkūleʻa. And if we have to, replace everything before the voyage to Tahiti. Okay, so this was obvious that it came to be, sadly, but it was a matter of fact. So Hōkūleʻa had to be rebuilt completely. So that took funding from the project and got a lot of people, the good guys, they're getting mad. But we couldn't help it. Billy Richards, Clifford, John, everybody, Kiani, Penny. We were living in squalid conditions in these ugly containers. But our mana o kuleana was to our child. We lived there to bring her back, to get ready for Tahiti. At the same time, a board of inquiry was held in private, and management was told that the captain and crew were responsible for this incident on Kauai. So you knew how that goes when board of directors hear that. So we had a sort of mark on our chest, even though we were showing that we loved her, and we're doing this for the A team and the B team for our run to Tahiti. And so comes the time, Papa Mau comes back, and he's getting ready, and he starts to rig Hōkūleʻa in only his way. So we had different groups pulling. We take turns. We're not going to have somebody from outside come in.
Takes 8 hours. Takes 8 hours to lash one iaku, both sides.
And you make them tight. And then so Papa Mau was hearing this talking on a side that they were questioning his rigging. That this rigging is only for a 27-foot Micronesian canoe, and Hōkūleʻa will not make it to Tahiti with this rigging. He was livid. And then I was up on the top here with a tape recorder. National Geographic was a little far away. So the dialogue going on, and the tape recorded everything. And the gentleman leader on the side was trying to convince Papa Mau not to, and just to, let's talk things over and then we can work things out as far as rigging. Papa Mau made up his mind that he was going to quit the project. So standing on the ground is John Cruz and Billy Richards. You put the two of them together, they can make miracles. Whatever you want, so to speak. So John and Billy, they're down below. Papa Mau comes down. Yeah. They put him in a car. Tell him what happened.
Put him in my Volkswagen, and Billy says, hey, let's get him out of here, because all the drama was where the National Geographic was shooting. Change his mindset, take him away from this place. So we went down to La Marina by where the Marine Tech Center is now. And Joey Cabell had his Hōkūleʻa. And so we said, hey, Mau, we get to go sail. And so Joey was there. And so the four of us got on his Hōkūleʻa, and this was a modern day catamaran. He just named it Hōkūleʻa, sort of like the same time Hōkūleʻa was being born at this big canoe. And so Mau, he saw this thing, it was like, wow, this is incredible, because here's a modern catamaran, a big steering wheel, stainless steel steering wheel. And so Billy and I were working the sheet line, and Joey was just standing there, and Mau was steering. And Mau was like, the frown turned to like a big smile, He goes, how fast this go? He says, hey, we're going 15 knots outside of Waikiki, and we're going towards the Diamond Head buoy. So then he asked Joey, how far is that? Lanai, we can go to Lanai. We have enough food and water. Let's go. So we started going into the channel. Then he goes, turn around. And then when we turned around, we were going downwind now. We were going like 17, 18 knots. The hull was just lifting up. There's four of us. We're going, oh, wow. And then Mau had this grin on his face. He's steering this thing now. And it's like, you know what? It's good that we took him away from all that. Mm-hmm. And then what Kimo was trying to say was, yeah, we lived in we used to call them the container days, We had two 20-foot containers. One was with all our tools, and one was with a lauhala mat and our cots, and we slept on the floor, Mm-hmm. And, we were getting, that's how we lived. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That night, Papa Mau came home because he was living with my parents up in Kaimuki, and he was so elated compared to how his mood was that early in that day. So he pulls out his beer and he says, oh, you go buy for me Joey boat. I says, oh, I would love to, Papa Mau. And he says, you go buy Joey's boat. We let Hōkūleʻa go by herself. We go on Joy's boat to Hōkūleʻa. You know, that's what he wanted, but that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But because of what John and Billy did, you know, he forgot about being hūhū, and he came back the next day to work on Hōkūleʻa. Well, at the time the confrontation was going on, Papa Mau, when he was home, he wove and twisted and all of these things in going to making Senate. He made this long piece that he put on the outboard yaku of Hōkūleʻa, while all the rest of the other 39 pieces were Dacron, right?
Yes,
the white
yes.
Dacron. And they were all looking good. The idea was that he wanted his people of Sarawal to help him make this, and then what I was getting from him, that their DNA would be on all of this, and then he would lash it onto Hōkūleʻa, and he would take his family's mana to Tahiti. And that's how it was. Well, that's when the question was put that this rigging will not enable Hōkūleʻa to get to Tahiti. It's going to fall apart. Okay, but it was significant because 5 years prior to that, I was always close with Kānaka, and when Herb started designing Hōkūleʻa, I says the first person you got to get is Kānaka. So while we were planning for Huinalo, Kānaka, he lashed the front yakus, okay, with Senate, and he said, when Senate is subjected to salt water and intense heat, it comes more pa'a, firm. This is the same thing Papa Mau was saying, why he wanted this Senate on Hōkūleʻa, just to show that this saturation and then this heat is like what the ancients used. So I didn't let it fall to the ground, and I brought it home and I kept it for 50 years.
Wow.
Okay, so we come to this part, and this is Shorty. Another one where I get this when I first meet him: can do, will do, shall do. Vietnam. Okay, so his mood right now is reflecting all what was going on even before we were ready to sail. And let me say this. No conspiracy theory existed with selected Hawaiian crew candidates. At no time was there any talk or wishes to advocate for any nation building, separatist rebellion, or entitlement privileges from the overthrow or other unjust events in Hawaiian history. Neither did any of the selected Hawaiian crew members insist or vocalize their belief that our voyaging project should include the Kaho'olawe project, and especially that Hōkūleʻa stage at Kaho'olawe prior to departing for Tahiti. While rebuilding Hōkūleʻa, I was visited by a person who came to view Hōkūleʻa and introduced himself as being with the United States Navy. In true military posture and verbal directness, he assured me that your project will have the service of military assets, and described a vessel smaller than a destroyer, along with having a long-distance capable aircraft. Did management approach military officials fearing that attempts were in place to have Hōkūleʻa taken to Kaho'olawe by Hawaiian crew members? All of the Hawaiian crew members were committed to being in complete cooperation with the scientific research. However, from the contentious posturing and racist colonial mannerisms, I believe such would hamper and distract from efforts to provide valid research results. A printed statement. Our voyage would celebrate the American Revolution, the coming of Captain Cook in 1778, and the arrival of the woes brought on by contact with the outside world. The rushed efforts to have Hōkūleʻa depart for Tahiti to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, simultaneously with recreations of patriotic events like Washington crossing the Delaware, Paul Revere's ride, and the Boston Tea Party, all to honor the American Revolution, resulted with kāpulu attempts to manage their chaotic situation. No quartermaster was actively in charge, resulting with haphazard loading of supplies. Preserved foods were stowed to freshly painted compartments, emitting lead-based toxic fumes, instantly contaminating the Hawaiian foods, while Hōkūleʻa was moored and exposed to intense sunlight and humid conditions. There was no approved medical kit to which everyone, especially management, should have been trained on and be familiar with its contents. Coast Guard approved foul weather gear was not made available for the Hawaiian crew members, who had to resort to using plastic trash bags for protection from the elements, while onboard management were outfitted with approved safety gear. A funding proposal on the onboard science studies listed physiological stress tests that the crew would undergo, similar to conditions which ancient Polynesians must have had to endure. Details of 7 onboard science studies was provided to me by mistake. And after perusing the details, I believe that I and all crew members deserve to have been made aware of these studies. So we continue on. Hōkūleʻa gets to Tahiti, and I wasn't on Hōkūleʻa. I made up my mind I'm going to get off, but I had my trust that we would make it with the crew members that we had. But there was a lot of distractions from what I gathered that took place. And so here she said, what is this? Matawai Bay. Okay. Yes. There's a hotel right above Tahara where we stayed at. And the press was not nice. It was all one-sided. You know, we were like criminals at that time. And you figure mutiny on a bounty. I mean, this is just a sort of carbon copy of it. And we didn't know what to do. The families came over. And so we were stuck there. Then all of a sudden, we get this happening. Upon arrival of Hōkūleʻa to Papeete, I observed Buffalo Keʻaulana in dire pain from an infected foot. No onboard medical attention was being offered, nor was there any indication that emergency medical attention was informed to respond. He had to be helped off of Hōkūleʻa by his Hawaiian crew members, and they had to walk several blocks to where a welcome ceremony was to be held. 2 days later, I was approached by a board member who presented me with 4 room service tabs with the names Buffalo Keʻaulana, Bugi Kalama, Taiga Espera, and Duki Kohulu, and informed that if the bills were not paid by a particular time, they would be taken to jail. Boy, that hit me hard. Okay. Advising me throughout was Danny Kalekini, who lived in Papeete with his wife Jackie. Aware of the warning of jail to the crew members, Danny made a phone call and contacted Princess Abigail Koananakoa, who arrived to greet Hōkūleʻa, and she having been made monetary donations to the project. Danny stated that the spokesperson for the Hawaiian crew members wanted to meet with her, and she accepted, stating that she also wanted to meet with me, as she was perturbed and really mad to the nasty press coverage about her Hawaiian crew members. We met and I told her of Buffalo's injury and the threat of jail time. Angered at how her best friend and surfing partner was being treated, she immediately summoned the best of medical care for Buffalo and contacted the manager of the Tahara Hotel to make payment for the room service tabs. Ms. Koanakakoa asked that I keep her informed of further problems. Within moments, I was told that I had to be at a meeting with the owners of Hōkūleʻa and that I would be reprimanded for disrupting the project with severe consequences to be handed down. I immediately contacted her secretary, Maggie Parker, and was assured that Kekau would meet with me. Ms. Koanakakoa entered the room with me and tore into the all-male directors, standing in front of them and in a convincing, articulate, and charismatic, authoritative posture and voice in the style to that of the most powerful lawyer. They all were in melted and weak posturing and would not dare respond. It was as if they realized that they could be in for serious legal consequences, as she alluded to she considering taking possession of Hōkūleʻa. I mean, don't get her mad. Don't get her mad. Miss Koanakakoa's itinerary was to charter a boat to follow Hōkūleʻa, as she would be visiting all of the islands, and asked that I accompany her and provide more details of the project. Most embarrassing was that to every island we went to, Her Tahitian translator was informed that French gendarmes would be following me, as it was believed that I was to bring physical harm to the owner of Hōkūleʻa and his family. The translator did not inform Miss Kānaka, as I advised him not to. No names were provided. However, as Miss Kānaka's boat glided next to Bora Bora Lagoon Luxury Suites, a kitchen window was opened to one of them, and standing at the kitchen sink was the head of the project and his wife. Face to face with me and Lonnie Kavalo, they both screamed in fear and ran from their suite to the manager's office. Gendarmes were summoned and met with Miss Kānaka, who went ballistic and asked for the mayor to meet with her. The husband and wife were escorted to the airport. About a year following the voyages, a book was released to which the author stated, Kimo Hugho was the troublemaker and leader of the grumbling crew on shore. Then in the ocean, Buffalo Keaulana, Boogie Kalama, and Billy Richards, among the other gang that succeeded Hugo's role. Shorty Broderman was not a good crewman because he once declared his objection to the Howley member. I mean, it's, just getting nasty at that time. So anyway, Papa Mao, after so many years, he comes back to Hawaii. So I tell Kekau, because I was living in one of her properties, she says, let him come down to cousin's house, Pomai Kānaka. So he came down, he stayed there a couple of days. We showed him the National Geographic film without asking him anything. He says, too much beer they give me. Hinana beer. I am tired. Too much talk about the Hawaiian crew. Well, what I'm talking about, a tape recording was made by Mao, under duress, in which he talks about us as no good and no good. So the press picks this up, and even until this day, people are going to hold on to that. So Papa Mao was there. He enjoyed the fishing and the living down there. I had been with Kekau for 30 years as her personal first responder and aide. I had a job in life safety with fire protection systems, like the systems they designed for Red Hill and other big systems like that. But on weekends, I'd be down at her estate in Punaluu. Then if she called me to go with her to travel throughout the Pacific, we would be with her friends in the royal families of Tahiti. Her best friend over here is Queen Tiata, the Maori queen. Her other friend is the Tongan queen right here. So in this setting of grand setting for the stature of who they are, there's also the setting of normal coffee table talk in which they would be talking, about anything. And so Kekau would call me in and say, well, tell them about Iolani. Tell them about this, about Hōkūleʻa, and all of that. So they felt that, this is usual for the indigenous people who are strongly of their culture, of the sea, and all of that. So what we have here are, even though of their high stature, of who they represent, what they represent, these are Ohana, family of the canoe. So this is Tiata's waka. And we're staying at her marae up there, and then she has other waka coming down. And so what they wanted to do was look at, in the classroom, to have the students start thinking about engineering and design for modern day building. And then we come back to Oahu. This is the first funeral that Hōkūleʻa was used on for someone down in Makaha. And Boogie Kalama is holding the kahili there. And the plan was, after the spreading of the ashes, they come in, Hōkūleʻa will not be on an anchor. Hōkūleʻa is going to come up on the beach and join them for the pa'ina and the ceremonies. So what they did, they had a lot of people with malo. They tied the ropes up. Makaha, if you're not familiar with Makaha, at the old bathrooms is the steepest part of Makaha. And it's a really steep angle. They tied these lines on, and they knew that they're going to get these 6 tons or so of Hōkūleʻa up. They pulled her all the way up and a little bit more. And so the kaukau and all of that music. In the shady part of Hōkūleʻa would be the kupuna sitting in the shade. And they go underneath, the kids get on top, they dive off. Boogie Kalama and all different musicians from all over the state, they're on top playing music. So here you see in total the family of the canoe coming together. And then here's Kekau, who was friends with Buffalo when she was going to Notre Dame. When she come back for a holiday from Notre Dame, she'd head right for Makaha, and she'd be surfing with Buffalo. He'd clear everybody off of the wave. The wave is usually about 6 feet. I think the highest she went was 8 feet. He'd talk to her as he's paddling in with her. He's paddling side by side with her, and he tells her, stand up, and he follows her, and she's going right, and he's telling, okay, come back with me. So this was going on while she was coming back in her days of going to college. And then after the Hōkūleʻa project, he's out here again. Kekau was fascinated with clay and Shorty Bertelman. But you mentioned Bertelman, she'll jump up. Because these two personalities, if you never met them, you want to meet them. They came together and they're talking in private about building this gift for Papa Mau, Alingano Maisu, to give to him as a gift. Papa Mau was in a hospital up in Waimea, and he was going to sail this back, but his condition was such that he went on a plane, flew back. So Shorty Bertelman invited me to take this gift back to Sarawak. And I might add that the day Hōkūleʻa came into Papeete, message came to me that you will never sail on Hōkūleʻa ever again. So I got it, okay. And this is the first time I sailed, going to Micronesia. And it was beautiful because we had with us 5 wahine. Unbelievable. And we had young students there. Everybody was magnificent. So that was Kekau's appreciation. Then we come to the 50th. So all the to-do and all the hoopla and all of that taking place there. It ended as fast as it started. You know, the offer ceremony and the dedication and the hula. You know, aloha for everybody who did that hula and everything, the chants and everything. But all of a sudden, it was all over. We're back to normal. Hōkūleʻa is gone. So I have this wonderful lady who's the interpreter for Papa Mau's family. And she comes to me and she says, excuse me, but we would like you to come, Papa Mau's family wants to meet with you. And I says, oh yeah, okay. So I go and I'm introduced to this gentleman. He's so eloquent in English speaking. Oh, what a learned man. So he's the spokesperson. So he stands up and Papa Mau's family is all over there. And this beautiful lady who helped me is there. He says, this gentleman here, he says, Kimo, we want to thank you and your dad and mom for taking care of Papa Mau. But, Kimo, we are not happy and we are very mad at the way you and your Hawaiian crew members have been treated for 50 years. And you talk about this, stress, PSD, right? It's going through me like bullets. I never had this conversation in my life, but I'm trying to hold my composure and be cordial and all of that. But now I'm just going through this thing, and I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? Crack up right now? And I figure, well, heck, 50 years I was able to hold it. Okay, hold it for another 5 minutes. So we started talking, and I said, please, excuse me. I ran to my car. I unwrapped the Senate that was cut 50 years ago. And I always, treasured it because this is Papa Mau's gift to Hōkūleʻa 50 years ago, of which his family DNA is on. So I brought it out, and to my wonderful friend here, I don't tell the whole story so I can lose bits and pieces in the interpretation. I start where Papa Mau started, and she interprets. Okay, so they get it. Then I continue on, go all the way through to that point where I tell her for 50 years, I kept this, not knowing what I'm going to do. In fact, I thought, when my day comes and it ends, I'm going to take this Senate with me. But all of a sudden, I have it with me there because I wanted to take the Senate onto Hōkūleʻa and not tell anybody. I wanted the Senate, to at least talk to Hōkūleʻa because she was originally on Hōkūleʻa to go to Tahiti. But Hōkūleʻa was gone already. So I brought it down and I'm explaining. I want to make sure I get that message across. And she relates it to everybody else. And they're stunned, they're looking. I give the Senate to Cesario right here. And then we all hug and all of that. And I'm thinking, wow, this is not the end. We've been serving time for 50 years, not knowing what the charges are. But to me, this is it. We get satisfaction. And so, we come to the ending of the story, but before I go over this, I say, since 1976, Hawaii news media has never made efforts to fact-find, to verify uncorroborated and unsubstantiated claims, which has remained as truth for 50 years. However, a hate-based dissertation against Hawaiian crew members remains in circulation since its writing in 1990, and its source is the University of Hawaii. And so I read this, if you can read it too, in this ending for our show here. In his book, Vikings of the Sunset, Sir Peter Buck wrote, "I felt a profound regret for some living spirit. It was something we Polynesians have lost and cannot find, something we yearn for and cannot recreate. My words are, caring for Hōkūleʻa as if a family member, that spirit awoke and has settled amongst indigenous family voyagers who are Ohana Wa'a." I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Uncle, and thank you, John, and everybody else for coming today. Did anybody have any quick questions, or anybody want to ask any questions?
You guys are stunned, right?
Yeah,
It's good to be stunned sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
Appreciation.
Yeah, I was thinking, when I left this morning, my son Kepai told me, "Dad, 3 things: past, present, future." The past, remember what Mao did. Remember, let's see, all those people's shoulders that helped us. We stand on their shoulders. The present is now. Looking for the future is for us. When I was talking to Kimo earlier, he says, absolutely, we got to let all this come out, let it go. For the next 50 years. Hopefully not that long, though. Yeah.
Just real quick, I
Yes,
went to
please.
the 50th anniversary celebration and I was deeply moved. And I know I was at the microphone talking about the importance of pushing forward the zeal for voyaging. And as he said so, this young child came running from the the navigation tent where they signed people up, young people, to learn navigation. And someone had carved him a wa'a. And he was running with it, his hair streaming back. He was so excited. Right when I was saying the importance of taking it forward.
Yeah.
So thank you all for your voyage and, all the sharing and the manao. It's just incredible to hear you speak.
Thank you.
We, last week and the weeks before, we started this program on Kauai. So today was the last school. We took these 30-foot double hull coastal canoes on the trailer. We took them to each school, and we started at on the west side, Kekula Nihau, then Kānaka School, then Kekaha School, and worked all the way. So on the North Shore, the other crew members of Hōkūleʻa gave the classes at Hanalei School, Kilauea School, and so finally, you think to all these young people that somehow, when they grow up, I was trying to explain to this, that when you grow up, you guys got all born on these islands, and, for when you get older, you have your own family, but you can't even afford to have your own house on our island because you got to move to Las Vegas because, you can't afford it. And then I was thinking, I used to see Maui and Lahaina before it burned. Wow, I hope Kauai doesn't get like Maui. But now Kauai is Maui. And you just how to turn this around, how to be, how do you say, how to be more kind.